I stood in my kitchen that Tuesday morning, pouring chamomile tea into my favorite cracked mug, when my phone buzzed on the counter. A single message from my lawyer, Clanton Reese, lit up the screen with urgency I hadn't expected. "Call now. It's about your son." My hand froze mid-pour as hot liquid splashed against ceramic. Before I could catch my breath, another message appeared from Alder himself. "My son, my only child." The message was short, cold, and devastatingly cruel. "Mom, don't make this harder. Sign the papers." My chest tightened as confusion mixed with dread. What papers? What was happening? I dialed Clanton immediately with trembling fingers. He answered on the first ring, his voice tight and urgent in a way I'd never heard before. "Marwena, your son is trying to declare you mentally unfit." The words hit me like a physical blow. My knees buckled slightly against the counter. My own child wanted to strip me of control over every asset I'd built since I was 28 years old. Clanton continued speaking, but his words seemed to come from very far away. "Marwena, he forged a statement in your name." The room tilted around me as I processed what he'd just said. Forge. My son had forged my signature on legal documents. "I'm emailing you the document right now," Clanton said. "You need to see exactly what we're dealing with here." I set down my mug with shaking hands and moved to my laptop on the dining table. The email arrived within seconds. I clicked it open and felt my soul flinch at what appeared on screen. A signature that almost looked like mine sat at the bottom of an official-looking document. Words I would never speak were attributed directly to me. "I, Marwena Hale, hereby grant my son sole authority over all accounts due to my declining cognitive state." I stared at the page, my hands trembling against the keyboard. Not with fear exactly, but with pure humiliation. Alder had written lies about me as if I were already dead and buried. "There's something else you need to know," Clanton said, pulling me back from my shock. "The nurse listed as the witness on that document? She doesn't exist in any medical database." My mind struggled to keep up with the implications. "And the notary number belongs to a man who died 3 years ago in Alberta." That meant this wasn't just a simple betrayal or moment of greed. This was a coordinated attack, carefully planned and executed. Someone had helped Alder construct this elaborate lie. "I found a second document," Clanton continued after a heavy pause. "One Alder didn't expect me to discover. He sent another file through email. This one stabbed even deeper than the first. Alder had attempted to move $480,000 out of my retirement trust. The trust I'd built through decades of accounting work, late nights at the office, and quiet sacrifices my son had never even noticed or appreciated. My son had written a justification in the transfer request that made my blood boil. She no longer remembers conversations clearly. She agreed to this arrangement, the justification read. I remembered everything, every conversation, every promise, every moment, especially the moment I realized my own son considered me disposable property. But it was the name on the receiving end of the transfer that truly shook me to my core. Hale Future Holdings LLC. An entity using my family name, created just 6 days ago according to the registration timestamp. Alder was building a financial coffin around me, brick by brick. The LLC has a second member, Clanton said quietly. Someone you know personally. Someone Alder should never have involved in this scheme. I closed my eyes, bracing myself for another blow. Who is it? My voice came out barely above a whisper. Clanton hesitated for just a moment before saying the name. The second member is your niece, Arliss Rowan, my sister's daughter. Quiet, clever Arliss, who was always broke and always smiling at me with that sweet, apologetic grin when she borrowed money. I felt something heavy settle in my chest. Not anger exactly, but a cold understanding. Alder needed someone pliable and desperate. Arliss needed money and had few scruples about how she got it. But betrayal from two people in your bloodline tastes like rust in your mouth. They filed paperwork to take control of your properties next, Clanton added. Your home is listed for potential transition. My home, the place where I raised Alder after his father left us. Every photo on the wall, every book on the shelf, every memory embedded in those rooms. All of it suddenly at risk of being stripped away. Someone leaked your medical records to justify the incompetency claim, Clanton said. And Marwena, it wasn't Alder who accessed them. My stomach dropped. Then who? Clanton sent another file, a false medical evaluation letter claiming I had early onset cognitive decline. Supposedly written by Dr. Jalen Omsbrook, a neurologist I'd never met in my entire life. The date of the evaluation made me laugh bitterly. That same day I'd been at the community center teaching financial literacy to seniors. They hadn't just tried to steal from me. They'd tried to erase my mind, to declare me incompetent and unfit. But the twist came when I examined the signature more closely. Dr. Omsbrook was a real neurologist practicing in Calgary. But the signature wasn't his authentic one. I knew this because I'd worked with him 20 years ago on a corporate audit for the hospital. I had seen that man write his name at least a dozen times. His signature was bold with looping strokes. This one was timid and shaky, obviously forged by someone with no practice. That meant someone else had written it and used his name. It also meant Alder and Arliss weren't working alone in this conspiracy. Clanton's voice dropped lower on the phone. Marwena, there's a third conspirator in this scheme. Someone with direct access to real medical files and patient information. The person who leaked your medical history works at Briarstone General, Clanton said in a near whisper. My chest tightened painfully. Briarstone was where my late husband had received cancer treatment years ago. I knew nearly everyone who worked there. Nurses who'd hugged me through grief. Clerks who remembered my name. Technicians who'd shown me kindness during the darkest days. Who was it? I asked, though part of me didn't want to know. Clanton hesitated, then said a name I hadn't spoken aloud in years. Dorian Flint, my husband's former medical aide. A man who once called me family during those long hospital stays. A man I had paid out of my own pocket when insurance denied coverage for certain treatments. He had leaked my non-existent diagnosis for money. I stood completely still in my living room, letting the humiliation wash over me and then settle into something colder. It didn't break me down. Instead, it made me sharper and more focused than I'd been in years. Dorian received a $22,000 payment 2 weeks ago, Clanton said. Sent from an account under your son's name. He forwarded the payment ledger to my email. I opened it with steady hands now, my initial shock transforming into cold calculation. The transfer was labeled simply, consultation fee, MH case. MH, Marwena Hale, my own initials, my name used to fund my own systematic betrayal. But the ledger showed more than just that one payment. 5 additional deposits had been sent to different people in small amounts. $900, $1,500, $2,200, bribes building a network of conspirators. This wasn't incompetence or a moment of weakness. This was careful architecture designed to destroy me legally. Alder had built an entire structure of lies and forgeries to declare me mentally unfit. I walked slowly to my window, watching the evening sun fall against my rose bushes in the yard. My son was trying to bury me alive on paper while I still breathed. Alder has scheduled an emergency competency hearing for tomorrow morning, Clanton said suddenly. He didn't inform you because he didn't expect you to know about it. Rage would have been useless. Instead, I felt my mind sharpen to a fine point. What time? The next morning, Clanton picked me up at my house himself. He didn't expect you to show up, he said, adjusting his tie as we drove. That was his strategy from the beginning. We arrived at the courthouse downtown, and there they were waiting. Alder, Arliss, Dorian Flint, standing together near the entrance like a knot of shadows plotting in daylight. Alder's expression froze completely when he saw me walking toward them. Mom, what are you doing here? Clanton wasn't supposed to notify you yet. I lifted one hand to silence him. I'd earned that right through decades of sacrifice. Inside the chamber, even the judge looked surprised by my presence. Mrs. Hale, your son filed this petition on the basis of your absence from proceedings. Your Honor, I said gently but firmly, I haven't missed a single day of my own life. Alder's face went pale. The judge shuffled papers on his desk, clearly uncomfortable with the situation unfolding. Mrs. Hale, an additional affidavit was filed this morning that complicates matters. My stomach tightened. What affidavit? The judge handed me a document across his desk. I recognized the handwriting immediately. Bold, steady, precise strokes. Mine. Except I had never written these words in my life. My heart didn't race in panic. Instead, my mind worked through the possibilities methodically. There was only one person in my family who could imitate my handwriting perfectly. My son didn't know about this skill. Arliss didn't know about it either. But I did, because I had taught her myself when she was only 8 years old. My sister, Rayla, my only sibling and once my closest friend. A woman who hadn't called me in over 4 months without explanation. Had she truly signed my name to this document? I looked at Alder carefully. He looked genuinely confused by this new affidavit as well. He didn't know about it, which meant someone had gone completely off script from whatever plan they'd originally made. Clanton's phone buzzed loudly in the quiet courtroom. He glanced at the screen and his expression changed to shock. He leaned close to whisper in my ear, "Marwena, your sister just filed a petition to become your legal guardian." The words hit me like ice water. We rushed out of the courtroom as soon as the judge called a recess. At the far end of the marble hallway stood Rayla, polished as ever in a navy blazer, hair perfect, wearing a smile far too bright for a courthouse setting. "Marwena," she said warmly, opening her arms. I came as soon as I heard what was happening. I didn't step forward into her embrace. "Did you sign my name on that affidavit?" Her smile flickered for just a second, then stabilized back into place. "Of course not. I'm here to help you, sister. Alder told me about your condition." "Alder," I said, turning to my son, "did you call her?" He blinked in surprise. "No, I haven't spoken to Aunt Rayla in months." Arliss looked genuinely startled by this revelation. Dorian stepped backward slightly, distancing himself. That meant Rayla wasn't part of their conspiracy team. She was leading her own separate plan entirely. Clanton showed me her guardianship petition on his phone. There it was, written in formal legal language. Reason for guardianship request. Due to my sister's significant financial assets, I fear for her safety and well-being. Assets, safety, control, not love or genuine concern. Just control over everything I'd built. She hadn't come to save me from Alder's scheme. She'd come to seize what my son was too sloppy to steal properly. As the others walked away down the hall, Rayla leaned in close. Her breath smelled like mint and deception. She whispered directly into my ear, "You should have seen this coming, Marwena. You left me no choice in this matter." Rayla's whisper echoed in my skull like a slow bell ringing. "You left me no choice." People only say that phrase when they've already chosen greed over everything else. I watched her walk toward Alder and Arliss with measured steps, not to comfort them or form an alliance, to assess them like a wolf counting sheep in a pen. Clanton leaned close to me. "Marwena, this isn't a coordinated conspiracy. This is layered opportunism from multiple parties." Suddenly the pattern became crystal clear in my mind. Alder wanted my wealth to solve his financial problems. Arliss wanted a payout to escape her debts. Dorian wanted bribe money for his cooperation. But Rayla? She wanted total control. Full, legal, permanent control. The kind only a court-appointed guardian receives over another person's life. She wasn't helping Alder's plan succeed. She was swooping in to outplay him entirely and take everything for herself. A family dismantling itself piece by piece while I stood in the center, calm as a stone in a rushing river. Clanton checked another filing on his phone and his face went pale. "Oh God, Marwena, Rayla listed you as financially compromised in her petition. She submitted your bank statements as evidence, and they're not accurate at all." We stepped quickly into an empty side room. Fluorescent lights hummed above us. Clanton pulled up the financial documents my sister had submitted to the court. "Look at this section," he said, tapping the screen with urgency. "Your checking account shows a negative balance of $3,000. That was impossible. My account had never dipped below $20,000 since 1999. Another page showed a credit card maxed out at $38,000. A loan application in my name that I had never seen before. Rayla's written statement whispered through all of it like poison. "It is clear my sister can no longer responsibly manage her own finances." I breathed slowly and deliberately. Anger would cloud my thinking and make me sloppy. Wisdom keeps the mind sharp and focused. "These altered numbers can only come from someone with direct access to your accounts," I said quietly. Clanton's eyes widened with realization. "Your financial advisor, Quinlan Dravon, the one person who had all my passwords and account information. The one person I had trusted the longest with my financial life. A man I'd known for 15 years. Clanton made a quick phone call to Quinlan's firm. His face darkened as he listened. He hung up and looked at me. Quinlan resigned from his firm last week without explanation. And according to their security logs, he immediately met with Rayla the next day. I remembered the last time Quinlan had visited my home 3 weeks ago. He'd brought pastries from my favorite bakery, laughed easily about nothing important, asked about my arthritis with false concern. He'd mentioned nothing about the unusual withdrawals that now appeared in Rayla's court petition. He had sat across from me in my living room, sipping tea, gazing around like he was already planning to redecorate the space. "Do you ever think about simplifying your responsibilities?" he'd asked me that day. I had thought it was harmless small talk at the time. Now I saw it for exactly what it was. A soft probe, a test for weakness and vulnerability. I had passed his test by failing it completely, because I'd trusted him without question. Clanton paced the small room. "This is a four-way betrayal, Marwena. And they're all using completely different angles to attack you." "No," I said softly but firmly. "It's a five-way betrayal. Because someone had to connect all these people together. Someone who told each person exactly what they could gain from my downfall. And I already felt in my gut who that person was." Before I could voice my suspicion, Clanton's phone buzzed with an urgent alert. "Alder just filed an emergency request to freeze all your accounts," he said. Effective immediately. We sprinted back to the main courtroom. Alder stood before the clerk's desk, nervously tapping his foot against the marble floor. "Your Honor," he was saying in a rehearsed voice, "I'm requesting a temporary freeze on all accounts. My mother is financially vulnerable and being manipulated by others." He turned and looked back at me slowly. In his eyes I saw something terrifying. He believed his own lies. Not fully or earnestly perhaps, but enough to justify the greed consuming him. Greed rarely needs truth. It only needs convenience and opportunity. I stepped forward calmly. "Your Honor," I said, my voice clear and steady, "I am not vulnerable. But I am being deliberately targeted." The entire room shifted its energy. Rayla folded her arms defensively. Arliss looked down at her shoes. Dorian pretended to check his phone. Quenlin wasn't present yet in the courtroom. Smart men avoid being seen until the endgame arrives. The judge frowned deeply. "This situation is highly irregular." Clanton handed him a thick folder. "Your Honor, this contains the forged medical reports, the altered bank statements, and the complete bribery ledger." The judge's expression hardened as he flipped through pages. Before he could speak, Alder suddenly blurted out desperately, "Mom told me she forgets things. She said it to me last month." I stared at my son across the courtroom. Last month I had said only this to him during dinner. "Alder, I forget nothing that matters." He had heard only what served his purposes and twisted my words. The judge ordered a recess and demanded all parties return with a full financial audit by that afternoon. The courthouse quieted as I sat across from Clanton in a conference room, reviewing the audit he'd managed to compile in record time. It was thorough, precise, and absolutely damning. But one detail stood out like a jagged knife cutting through everything. A transfer from Alder's personal account to Quenlin Dravon for $15,700. A transfer from Quenlin's account to Rayla for $10,000 exactly. A transfer from Rayla to Arliss for $2,000. A transfer from Arliss to Dorian for $600. A perfect circle of self-interest and greed. Not a conspiracy exactly, more like a chain of opportunists feeding on the same corpse. Me. But then I saw one more entry that none of them expected Clanton to uncover. A payment labeled simply, "Consulting Retainer, RHA" set of initials I hadn't spoken aloud in 18 years. As soon as I saw them, I knew everything. This betrayal didn't start with Alder or Rayla. It started long before them. I whispered the name under my breath like a curse. "Rowan Hale." Clanton froze completely. "Marwena, your ex-husband is involved in this?" My first husband, a man I had buried in memory long before he supposedly died. Rowan was the only man alive who once knew every corner of my financial life. Every password pattern, every banking habit, every investment strategy. Before he left our marriage, he told me something cruel I never forgot. "You're too careful with money, Marwena. Someone will take it from you one day." I thought it was just bitterness from a failed marriage. Now it felt like prophecy and planning. But Rowan was dead, buried in Florendon County 13 years ago after a reported heart attack. So how could he receive a payment last month? Clanton's phone buzzed urgently. He glanced at it and his face drained of all color. "Rowan Hale isn't dead, Marwena. A court document shows he filed a confidential address waiver last year. He's alive, hidden, and legally shielded." We stepped outside the courthouse for air. Mine felt impossibly thin. "Rowan faked his death," Clanton said. "Or someone helped him disappear completely. And now he's being paid by your son." A cold memory rose in my mind. The night Rowan walked out of our home without even packing a suitcase. No anger, no drama, just a look over his shoulder as if he knew he'd return someday. Alder was only 5 years old then. He barely remembered his father at all. But Rowan knew how to manipulate people expertly. He could turn guilt into obedience. Suddenly Alder's strange coldness made perfect sense. Someone had been whispering poison into his ear for months. A silver sedan turned the corner slowly, deliberately. A tall man stepped out. Gray at the temples, wearing a coat I recognized instantly. Rowan, alive, watching me from across the street with cold eyes. Now to the lovely viewers of this channel. Got a story? Let's tell it together. Here on this channel, your voice matters. If you have a personal story, a revenge moment, a betrayal twist, or even an idea that you think would make our narrative sharper, more emotional, or more entertaining, share it with us. Tell us what themes you want more of. What twists keep you hooked? What parts of our stories hit you the hardest? Or what you'd love to hear next? Drop your thoughts, stories, and suggestions in the comments below. Let's build this amazing community together, one powerful story at a time. Your story could be the next one featured. Don't be shy, we're listening.